Okay, there's a couple of things I just want to point out with the door adjustments. The first thing is we want to maintain a metal-to-metal gap of at least 4 inches, and what we try and strive for is 4 1/8 to 4 1/4 inches between the metal edges of the door and between the sensitive edges. The other thing that I'd like to point out is that we'd like to maintain a gap at the back between the trailing edge of the door and the door lever where it connects to the shaft. We need to maintain this gap so that when the doors are operating, there's no contact between the trailing edge of the door and the door lever. And lastly, before you do any door adjustments, we want to make sure that the doors are in line with each other and parallel. And a good guideline is to look at the yellow edge and use that as a reference point. Here's an effect that you sometimes see with doors where you have this V effect of the doors not completely closed. Now, there are a couple of different causes for this. One cause is that we have contact between the trailing edge of the door panel and the arm of the shaft. And the other effect that causes this is where the trailing edge of the door comes into contact with the jam seal before it's finished its complete rotation. What we're going to do now is set up the door preload and the door sealing. So we will remove the connecting rods from the teeter bar, removing these two 7/16 screws. We remove the connecting rods, at this point in time we have no air on the door engine, so what we're going to do is apply air and set the door engine in the closed position. Okay, now the door is powered into the closed position with air on, and what we do now is take the connecting rods and reapply the connecting rods to the teeter bar. What we'll do is take the rear panel, which is the trailing panel, and we're going to connect the rear panel first. We'll adjust the connecting rod until it fits on the teeter bar, and then we turn the connecting rod, moving the door panel, and notice the trailing edge of the door panel is moving outboard. Once you've turned it as much by hand as possible, we take a wrench and we'll apply a little bit more preload. What we call this preload, as we're loading the door against the jam seal. We never turn this more than 2 turns to apply preload. Usually 1 turn is sufficient. The way we check how much seal we've got there, we pull on the trailing edge of the door, and as you can see, we have a nice tight seal, and the door cannot be pulled inboard because of the preload we've applied. Once we've put the connecting rod back on the teeter, we reinstall the 7/16 bolt. Perfect. And we snug the bolt up. Okay, having snugged the bolt up, we apply preload to the trailing edge. So now we have the number 4 panel adjusted. I'm going to adjust the number 3 panel that overlaps it into place. So we close the door and we adjust the connecting rod until it fits over the teeter. We then install the retaining bolt, we then turn the connecting rod to move the trailing edge of the door panel out, apply preload so that the trailing edge of the door panel comes into contact with the jam seal, and we test the amount of preload. Here we have a good preload, the door is nice and snug. Okay, having completed those adjustments, the last thing we need to do is to tighten the jam nuts up. So move the jam nuts down, and tighten the jam nuts up. And then apply torque stripe between the jam nuts and the connecting rods. And we apply torque seal again to the jam nut and the connecting rod.